Hello there, fellow cultists. This is DM Nell, and I'm back as always, totally unprepared and shooting from the hip on this video. So this is number 115, I believe. And I continue my deep dive into the core rulebook. This time we're going into chapter the 8th, and we are going to be talking about a land in shadow. So this chapter deals with the core setting for Shadow the Demon Lord. Now, do you have to use the core setting? No. But if you don't already have a core setting that you want to run a game in using Shadow the Demon Lord rules, then this core setting was provided to you in the core rulebook for that purpose. All right, and so as such, you are free to use the setting or not use the setting. Now, of course, the game rules, or I don't know what came first, the game rules or the setting. I assume the game rules came first and then the setting was built around the game rules, but the setting is definitely... For example, the fact that when mortals die in the game, their souls are recycled, that is baked into the campaign setting. So that is, a feature of the game rules as well, because, you have elves who are immortal. They don't get reincarnated when they die, but you have humans that do. And because of that, there is kind of a rivalry going on between the mortal and the immortal races or ancestries in this setting. And so the immortal ancestries, have won over on the mortal ancestries by, setting up this whole reincarnation business, which is a topic, in and of itself. In fact, if you go back and look at the video that I did on the, what was that supplement? It was the religious supplement. Jesus H. Christ. What is the name of that supplement? It's not Jesus H. Christ. It is, it's buried under all of my shit over here, so I can't really get to it. But anyway, there is a supplement that deals with religion. For whatever reason, my brain cannot conjure the name of that supplement at the moment. But I did a video on it, has all the details about how all the religions work. So if you're interested, go back and look at that. My point is that the game setting incorporates the rules into it. So it's a good setting to use for that reason alone. But beyond that, the setting is just pretty cool. Because what you have here is a civilization that is beginning its decline. Now, you'll see a lot of things about Shadow the Demon Lord that says that, this world is in its apocalypse and it's the end of days and all that. That's not exactly true. It is the beginning of the end of days. So the world is basically like any other fantasy world. However, things are set up so that the world will rapidly descend into chaos and eventually it's apocalypse. Depending on how your game master how fast they want to accelerate that process. So at the beginning of your Land in Shadow campaign, everything is basically the same as it would be in any other campaign setting, fantasy campaign setting, except that the one stable of or the one thing that stabilizes the world, the known world here, is the Empire, and the Empire has just collapsed. So that begins the process of the decline of civilization, and it's basically just a snowball effect from there that will take you into the end of days. But, again, That's up to the DM to decide how that unfolds. You could very easily play many, many campaigns in this setting and not even realize that the empire has dissolved. There is just a ton of information on this setting. There's a ton of supplements that have been provided on the setting, making it just like any other campaign setting, a place where you can hold adventures and do lots of stuff. The driver of a campaign, however, is the fact that the wheels have begun turning towards an apocalypse. So again, your DM decides how quickly that is to happen. But at any rate, again, this is an optional setting. You don't need to use this setting. You can use Dark Sun very easily. You could use Faerun. You could use Greyhawk. And just use the Shadow of the Demon Lord rules. All you would really need to do is to, you would just need to not use or mitigate the use of some of the rules like insanity and corruption, but very easily just use the rest of the Shadow of the Demon Lord rules just fine. However, the core rulebook has a setting, so that's what I'm going to be going through. So, what is this setting? It is a continent. For all intents and purposes, the entire game world is set on one continent. And it is a continent of Rule. That's R-U-L. And the U has the double dot over it, whatever that's called. And I don't know if it's pronounced as Rule or Rule or some other weird. I don't know what that that the double dots over the U, how that's supposed to affect the pronunciation. But at any rate, the continent is called Rule. And all of the known civilization resides on this one continent. I'll show you a map here in just a moment. So it gives you, the chapter begins with kind of an overview of the setting. So let's just read the first couple of paragraphs here. The fate of the universe will be decided on Earth, a small planet swinging around a relatively young star in a remote corner of the galaxy. The Shadow of the Demon Lord falls over many worlds, but Earth has most recently drawn its fell attention. Not its full attention, its fell attention. Here, reality's boundaries have weakened enough to permit the darkness of the void to escape and set in motion a series of disasters that, unless stopped, will culminate in the end of all things. This chapter describes one of the myriad worlds threatened by the cosmic destroyer and gives you the information you need to set adventures there. Although you can find plenty of information about Earth and its lands here, lots of blank spaces exist as well. These areas, characters, organizations, and more are left to your imagination, so you can make the setting your own. That is partially true. When this was written, it is completely true. But after 6 years. Is it 6 years? 6 or 7 years later, there have been a lot of those blanks have been filled in by supplements. Overview. So there are 4 oceans with numerous islands. Well, let's just read it here. So I'm going to fuck it up. The waters of 4 oceans divide the land into 8 continents with numerous islands of varying sizes scattered among them. The continents boast diverse landscapes with towering mountains, pestilential, that's an interesting word, swamps, rolling plains, and primeval forests as old as the world. Deserts and badlands, prairies, hills, rivers, lakes, and jungles sustain a wide range of life. Now, this is interesting. It says 8 continents. However, it only describes one continent. And then there was a supplement that was The World Beyond that documented the rest of the world. And I don't remember there being 8 continents. There were lots of islands, that's for sure. There was one other big continent that was described, but I don't know about the 8 continents. However, what this may be describing is that there were 8 continents at one point that no longer exist for reasons. What those reasons are up to you. Maybe. Anyway, I'm just guessing. So let's see. Okay, so that's the world. So what about the setting itself? So here are several of the conceits. The gods are distant powers. So whether the gods exist or not is an open question. People worship them along with monsters and spirits of the ancestors, but the gods never take a direct hand in mortal affairs. Instead, they're devoted servants, advance their aims in the world, and make believers of unbelievers. All right, so let's unpack that a little bit. The way that magic works in this setting is that faith creates reality. So when people worship something, they give that something the power of their faith. And that physically mutates them to become the thing that is being worshipped. So the entire old faith, which we'll get to here in a moment, is based off of that. The old faith is a series of gods, the old gods, that aren't really gods. They're just elves. They're just fey creatures that people were told were gods. They began to believe in them as gods, and that power of faith warped them into becoming these godlike figures, but they aren't really gods. So what this is saying is that if there really are gods, in other words, creator forces out there that drive the fate of humanity and all the creatures upon Earth, if they exist, they're not looking at Earth. They're not paying any attention here because they do not. This is not the Greek pantheon. They do not come down and have sex with our women, and directly interfere with the goings on in the world. However, there are creatures that would have you believe that they are gods. So, what else do we have here? Hidden worlds. So not only do we have the mortal physical realm, but there are also hidden worlds. Other realms exist unseen within the mortal world, such as hidden kingdoms of the fairy, the underworld, hell, and other places strange and terrifying. And then other places can be created or destroyed at the whim of the Demon Lord or the Game Master. Magic is real. The world is a magical place. Magic infuses all things, all that remains of the creative forces that spun the universe out of the primordial chaos. Magic's abundance means that anyone with the will, time, and talent can learn to harness its power. Some people have the gift for wielding magic and call upon the power from within. Others discover it from reading ancient tomes and scrolls. And priests, devoted to the distant gods, call on magic to champion their causes in the world. So this is not a low magic setting, although you could easily run it as a low magic setting. I think I touched on that in the last video. However, it is not built to be a low magic setting. Magic infuses everything, and mortals can tap into that. Mortals live many lives. Death is not the end for mortals. It marks a transition from one life to the next. Upon dying, the soul pulls free from the flesh and remains for a short time before descending into the underworld. In this gloomy place, the memories of life is left behind, and they fade until nothing remains of the person that was. The blank slate of the soul then rises up from the underworld to live again. However, not all souls go to the underworld. People that have corruption weighs down the soul, and that sends them directly to hell, where their corruption is feasted upon by the devils, that are wicked fairies, actually, and darker supernatural beings. They eat the corruption from the souls. Once the souls no longer have corruption, they float up to the underworld to forget their past, and then they are recycled. All right, science and technology. Humanity has made great strides in science and technology, discovering black powder, clockwork technology, and steam technologies. Although still expensive and exotic, pistols and rifles are becoming more widespread. Clockwork automations work alongside laborers in construction and manufacturing. Engineers have begun to take steps towards creating steam engines. In the great 9 cities of the East, flying ships, balloons, and zeppelins have begun to appear. All right, so again, this is a lever that you can pull to determine how much of this stuff exists in your world. You could have this be a completely fantasy world and science and technology does not exist. Just get rid of the technomagic, technomancy tradition, and you're good to go. Just don't use any of the supplements that have technology incorporated in them, and you'll be fine. However, if you kind of like steampunky a little bit, it's not really a full-blown steampunk campaign. It's not. There's really only one city that is that you could say is closer to a steampunk setting, but even that one is up to you to decide how much you want to incorporate that. Again, these are levers that you can pull, and if you don't like the science and tech aspect of the campaign setting, just shut it down. I tend to like it, and it adds a dimension that that D&D doesn't have unless you're playing in Eberron. The world is filled with terrible monsters. So yeah, there's lots of monsters in lots of weird places. And the advent of the Demon Lord's shadow falling upon the world is emboldening them to come out of their hidden places and harangue the people, the surface people. All right, the Empire burns. So I already described this. This goes into great detail. Or not great detail, but it goes into detail on how the Empire fell. Basically, in a nutshell, the Empire has existed for nearly 1,000 years, and it gives you time on Earth over here in the sidebar, and it calls out that the Empire has been in existence for 888 years since the calendar starts at the founding of the Empire. So 888 years have passed since the founding of the Empire. However, the Empire has just fallen. The Emperor lies dead, strangled by the Orc King, who claimed the Alabaster Throne for himself, and freed the legion of slaves, Orc slaves, that looked to him for leadership. The uprising in the capital has sent shockwaves through the rest of the Empire. Orcs have risen against their masters as word spread, and vengeful mobs rampage across the countryside, burning, looting, and killing wherever they go. The Empire's instability invites savage humanoids to run amok through the crumbling landscape. Beastmen spill out from the old forests and broken lands, while trolls and giants resume their age-old wars against the fairies. Worst of all, cultists devoted to the Demon Lord have grown bolder, and even now work to hasten the arrival of their unspeakable master. Refugees flee to the cities, hunkering down behind the walls and living in squalid, overcrowded conditions, in the hopes that somehow they will escape the doom that casts its shadow across the lands. Order crumbles in the face of the upheaval. City leaders hide in their homes, and nobles seal off their castles, deaf to the cries of the people beyond the doors. These are dark times, and many believe they signal the first days of humanity's last age. So that is, again, that's how the campaign, if you wish, that's how the campaign kicks off in this setting. You could very easily go back earlier in the timeline to the heyday of the Empire, where everything is stable, and just run campaign after campaign after campaign with no apocalypse in sight. But the fall of the Empire is the thing that triggers the eventual decline of the world. All right, the Shadow of the Demon Lord. What the fuck is it? The Demon Lord is a menacing, shadowy figure lurking in the void between worlds. It craves escape from this realm for one purpose only: to destroy the universe and devour the living souls within it, or the souls living in it. The fabric of the reality has grown weaker, with reckless magic and the actions of mad and deranged who seek the final oblivion the Demon Lord promises. Cults of its servants have spread throughout the Empire and perform horrid rituals to call forth lesser demons and tear holes in reality for the coming of their master. Given the troubles plaguing the Empire, many believe that the Demon Lord is close to emerging, and when it does, all will be lost. All right, so let's talk about this. So the Demon Lord. As you read through the supplements, the Demon Lord doesn't really seem to be a prevalent threat. It is kind of like the boogeyman. It is like it's like the Cthulhu mythos to some degree in our world. It is just a cosmic horror that may or may not exist. It's myth. But as there are crazy people in the world, there are people who believe that this thing exists. And so the belief of the Shadow of the Demon Lord and the myth of the Shadow of the Demon Lord is mostly perpetuated by cults. Now, in your normal everyday society, in villages and in towns and cities and churches, the Demon Lord isn't really considered a threat. The real threat comes from the adversary. The adversary being the devil. And this is perpetuated by the most prominent religion in this world, which is the cult of the new church, or the church of the cult of the new God, or the church of the new God. Cult of the new church. So the cult of the new God is like this world's version of Christianity back in its early days, when Christianity was just developing, and there were things like inquisitions and lots of weirdities around it. And so the Church of the New God has its enemy to mankind, which is its version of the devil, which it calls the adversary. It also calls it the devil. It also calls it by its real name, which is Diabolus. So Diabolus is the devil. He lives in hell, and he is the one that's going to torment your soul once you die if you live a bad life, right? So he is the really scary bad guy that most people are concerned with. The Demon Lord, most everyday people don't even think about the Demon Lord. However, it's the crazy people that lurk in the shadows, that are in the cults, that believe the Demon Lord's existence, and they know that the Demon Lord wants to destroy everything and start with a clean slate. And they believe that by serving the Demon Lord, that they will be his favored and will be, allowed to continue on in this new world order that the Demon Lord creates, right? Sounds familiar? Yeah. So anyway, that is how the Demon Lord, at least that's how I interpret how it fits into this game. Now, you can use this however you see fit in your campaign. You can make the Demon Lord, the primary adversary, and the devil is just, another demon to defeat in a campaign. But it's totally up to you and how you want to run your campaign. All right, so let's move on. So the rest of this chapter goes into detail about the actual land of rule and the various civilizations that exist. So the first part here is the geography. So it just talks about the various features that you'll find. The Auroral Ocean, the Blasted Lands, Deepings Gorge, Crescent Bay. If there are interesting aspects of these things, they are mentioned in the paragraphs here, such as a desolation. Desolation is the desert that is on the northern portion of the primary continent of Rule. And one thing I should say is that the continent of Rule is, and it says right here, the continent of Rule spreads across the southern hemisphere, stretching north from the frozen polar regions until it breaks apart into a scattering of islands that reach across the equator. So cold down at the bottom. As you go up the continent, it gets warmer, which is a little hard to wrap your head around because, at least if you live in the northern hemisphere like I do, in our world, that's ass backwards. But anyway, that's the way it is here. All right, so the desolation is on the northern portion of the continent. It's a parched landscape of cracked mud, boulder fields, and sandy expanses. The land stretches for miles without any sign of life, yet it is not as empty as it seems. There's monsters, giant scorpions, and great black pyramids rise from the sands. The tombs of forgotten warlocks and sorcerers who once ruled these lands are believed to be responsible for their present form. From the depths of the desolation come forth shuffling undead horrors, driven south by some inscrutable purpose to escape the deadly landscape and feed upon the living. The cult of the new god supports a network of strongholds keeping the tide of undead at bay. We'll get to that here in a little bit. All right, then you have the Endless Steppe, the Fire Peaks, Ice Watch Islands. All right, so you can visualize all this stuff on the map that's provided. Now, the map was painted upon a canvas of human flesh, or some kind of creature's hide, anyway. And that's how the map is depicted. It's not detailed. Basically, just shows you the major features and the major areas that are described in the book here, but you see the Auroral Ocean, Nixian Ocean, the Crescent Bay, the Endless Steppes, the Blasted Lands down here. So all of the features that are described in this book are on the map. Okay, so then we go into the nations of rule. Starting off with the Empire, and it gives a little background of when the Empire started, how it rose to power, and how that works. We get a lovely painting here of the Tower Arcane and a sidebar that talks about the Tower Arcane. The Tower Arcane is a wizard tower that floats above the capital city of Caicris. And an order of wizards live within this tower. And they're like the primary order of wizards that exists in this world. It goes into detail about Caicris, which is the capital. The sidebar talks about the houses of healing. And wraps up the Empire portion quite nicely here. Then we go into the nation of Bulgrindia, that is to the south, the Grand Duchy of the West, the Holy Kingdom. So the Holy Kingdom is where the Church of the New God, or the Cult of the New God, grew. And it is on the northern border of the Imperial lands, and it is in the northern portion of the Imperial lands, I should say, just south of the Shield Mountains. And if you take a look at the map again up here, page up. No, page up. Here we go. All right, so this mountain range right here is called the Shield Mountains, and the Holy Kingdom is right here. The Imperial lands are pretty much everything below the Shield Mountains. Actually, the Northern Reach has been annexed by the Empire. We'll get to that. But, all of this is considered Imperial lands. The Endless Steppe on the western side of the Shield Mountains are not part of the Empire. All right, so where was I? The Holy Kingdom, being a prominent part of the Empire, is now kind of at odds with the Empire, because the Holy Kingdom really didn't dig the corruption and the depravity of the Empire as it got older and older. It became more corrupt, and so the Church and the Empire have kind of had its moments. But the Empire supported the Cult of the New God as its primary or official religion. That has come to an end with the death of the Emperor, and now the Orc King is in direct conflict with the Holy Kingdom, because the Holy Kingdom believes that orcs are an abomination. And so the orcs' very existence is an affront to the new god, which, is kind of offensive if you're an orc and you happen to be the new emperor. So they are, definitely at odds with the Holy Kingdom. All right, the Low Country is like the breadbasket of the Empire. The Marchlands is like the military wing. The northern reach is a kind of a frontier to the north of the Shield Mountains. Oldadine is one of the oldest civilizations where, let me rephrase that. So the Oldadine is one of the oldest nations to first become a nation. Let's see here. Tyr is another portion of the empire, and it's also at odds with the new empire because the emperor's only living descendant and heir to the throne is actually the lord of the Tyr territory, and so he believes that he needs to take back the empire from the Orc king that slayed his father. And it's up to you to decide how that works out. I already know how it works out, but anyway. Then we got the Confederacy of Nine Cities. Now, at some point in the empire's existence, portions of it began to break off from the empire and form their own nations. And the Confederacy is a coalition of 9 cities that are, it's a loose connection of these 9 cities. Each of the 9 cities is basically a city-state that rules territory around it. But they all kind of look to each other for support, primarily, in the event that there is hostility between it and the empire, which there hasn't been. Well, I'm sure there's been some minor conflicts, but for the most part, there hasn't been any major all-out wars between the Confederacy and the empire, mostly because the Confederacy of 9 Cities are interested mostly in money. And so, they exist to make money, and they definitely fund a lot of stuff in the empire, and so it's kind of a somewhat healthy relationship. Not really healthy, bad word. Anyway, they have a relationship, and so it's worked so far. So anyway, it talks about the Confederacy as a whole, and then it goes into the individual 9 cities, starting with the city of Death, Azul. Where a organization of assassins is known to be headquartered in. The city of Chains, which is Dis. The Dreaming City, which is Eads. The Golden City of Kem. The City of Wonders, which is Lidge. This is the steampunky city that I was referring to earlier. The first city, Nessus. The City of Thieves, Prul. The City of Blood, which is Kif or Keef, not really sure how to pronounce that. And then the City of Gods, which is Set. We talk about a prominent cult that is known as the Brotherhood of Shadows. This is like the biggest cult that directly worships and tries to bring the Demon Lord into this reality. So this would be a good bad organization for you to feature as as opponents. Let's see here, and then we go into other lands. So we got the Blotland, Freeholds of Nar, the Kingdom of Sails, Kingdom of Skulls, Patchwork Lands. And I'm not going into detail on these because it's way too much information here. The Pirate Isles, which is actually in a supplement. Now you can make the Pirate Isles however you want based on the information here, but what it has transformed into is the campaign setting of Freeport. So Schwalbe Entertainment took the existing campaign setting of Freeport, which it was designed to exist in any campaign world, and he plopped it into this campaign world. So the Pirate Isles is the campaign setting of Freeport, and there's a whole supplement and a campaign, which is called the Queen of Gold, that's featured in the Pirate Isles. Okay, but again, since this is core rulebook stuff that we're talking about, you can make the Pirate Isles anything that you want. You can make them. You can model this after Pirates of the Caribbean if you want. Then you have the Woad lands, which is basically anywhere that the Woad exist. The Woad are they are descendants of the first people who have mingled with other strains of humanities over the centuries. The Woad are divided into tribes. So these are kind of like your Native Americans of this campaign setting. They've always existed since the dawn of humanity, but they've been kind of pushed to the fringes of civilization. So they can be found pretty much anywhere in tribes. They tend to worship different animals, or they tend to venerate different animals. So the tribes tend to be named after these types of animals, like the badger tribe, the bear tribe, the boar tribe, so on. All right, then we have the Northern Reach. The Northern Reach on the map was that part on that's sandwiched in between the Imperial lands to the south, the Shield Mountains that cut it off from the Empire, and then to the north of it you have the Desolation. So in between that is the Northern Reach. So the Northern Reach would be, I'm guessing, the equivalent to, say, the southern portion of the United States. Typically warm, very hot and humid during the summer. Not very cold during the winter. You may get the occasional snowfall here, but for the most part, the temperature is fairly warm to moderate for the entire year. It's mostly a frontier. In other words, it hasn't been completely settled. So there are vast areas of the Northern Reach that are unexplored. But there are some major settlements that have already been established in the Northern Reach. So you have the city of Gateway, which is on the eastern coast. You have the city of Crossings, and you have the city of Sixton. And Foundry. So there are like 4 major cities that have already been established. But then a huge portion of the Northern Reach is still unexplored, which makes it the suggested area for the start of a campaign, which is separated enough from the Empire so that the Imperial strife is not directly impacting your campaign when you start it. And so you can have your players and your characters, toot around the Northern Reach, exploring all these unexplored areas before the troubles of the real world start affecting the campaign. All right, so that is the Northern Reach. It goes now into the background and the history of the Northern Reach, and it details various portions of the Northern Reach. So the Northern Reach is also known as the Lands of Summer, since the Fey creatures used to reside here. They used to reside everywhere, but this was like the hub of the fairy. The Lands of Summer. In fact, the fairy capital of Alfheim is still located. The portal to it is still located in the Northern Reach. It's one of those hidden lands that's in a separate dimension, but the entrance to that dimension can be found in the Northern Reach. So it talks about the history of the Northern Reach, how the first people first came to be, the Dark Times, rise of the Empire, the Crusades, and the present. Now, in this world, the Crusades were not like the Crusades in our real world. The Crusades in this world came about because of the influx of undead pouring out of the Desolation. And so the cult and the new god, basically with the partnership of the Empire, established these strongholds along the border of the Desolation to fight these hordes of undead as they form and come down into try to come down into the Northern Reach. And it can kind of be thought of sort of like Game of Thrones, with the hordes of undead beyond the wall. This one doesn't have a physical wall. This one has just a series of strongholds. But the same problem exists in that something is creating all these undead, and they tend to gather, and from time to time they come to the south and try to cause problems. All right, then we have the geography and climate. We talk about specific features like the Barrows and the Black Hills. And again, we're talking about the Northern Reach here. So there's actually a Northern Reach specific map that goes into a lot more detail than the previous map. And so the features that are talked about here can be found on this more detailed map. But the settlements that I told you about that are, major settlements, Gateway, I forgot Landfall. Well, there's a few. Gateway, Landfall, Good Fortune, Crossings, Sixton, and Foundry. They tend to be on the eastern side. And then all of the strongholds that the Church of the New God have set up along the border of the Desolation are on the northern portion. But the rest of this area over here to the west is mostly untamed frontier. All right, so again, it just talks about all the various features that you'll find in features and settlements that you'll find in the Northern Reach, and then it goes into detail on the major settlements. So again, you've got Crossings, which is the city that has 19,000 people in it. It's a city that is featured in the Tales of the Demon Lord campaign setting, which is or campaign. Let's see what's referred to as the adventure path. That's what I was looking for. Adventure path. It is the first adventure path for Shadow of the Demon Lord, and it's featured in the city of Crossings, or it starts off there anyway. Then you have the Crusader states, which is those. It is those strongholds that lie along the northern border. They're collectively referred to as the Crusader states. Foundry, Gateway, Good Fortune, Highstone, which is a dwarven settlement along the Shield Mountains. Landfall, Sixton, which is the provincial capital of the Northern Reach. And then it goes into the people and culture. So in the Northern Reach, you have the Imperials, people that are loyal to the Empire. Crusaders, people that live in the Crusader states. Reachers are people that were born and raised essentially in the Northern Reach, and so they consider themselves to be more independent and don't really like the Empire. The Fae, and then you got degenerates. Degenerates are those people that went to live in the early days, went to live in the frontier, in the wilderness, and kind of started inbreeding, and yeah, you know how that goes. All right, and then there are others. Others can be like the Woad, can be part of the others, dwarves that have been cast out, nomads, hermits, all those types of things can be found in the Northern Reach. Then we go into religion and belief. Detailing the Old Faith, which I touched upon earlier. The Old Faith consists of Father Death, the Horned King, Maiden in the Moon, Old Man Winter, Revel, the Queen of Summer, and the World Mother. Oh, and also the Seer. I would say that the Devil should be kind of part of this, but he's kind of treated separately for some reason. But he grew out of the Old Faith. So the Devil is not Father Death, incidentally. Father Death presides over the underworld, whereas the Devil presides over hell. Those are two separate places. But the Old Faith are basically fairies, fairy creatures, elves, if you will, that the mortals of the world began to believe in as gods, and that transformed them into becoming godlike creatures or godlike figures in the world. So they're still venerated in parts of the world, but this old religion is called old because there is a new religion in town, and by new I mean it's only a few hundred years old. The new god is the new guy in town, and it is the cult of the new god is the prominent religion that is practiced in most settlements in the Empire and beyond. So it talks about the cult of the new god and the new god himself, and how it was formed. Astrid is the new god's prophet. And so, yeah, it gives you just enough information here, but it goes into a lot more detail in the, what is the name of that supplement? Something Faith. Unbound Faith, something like that. Anyway. All right, so then it also talks about witchcraft. Witchcraft is another religion that is practiced by witches. Talks about the fairy queen, Titania. She is the queen of Alfheim, probably the most powerful elf next to Diabolus. But anyway, she's the fairy queen, so she's one of the gods that is also venerated as a actual fairy creature. So she is the queen of summer in the old faith, but she's also Titania, the fairy queen, for people who actually meet her in the kingdom of Alfheim. You have other elves of note: Oberon, the elf king, the Robin prince. You have the troll king. And if you dig the whole fairy aspect of fantasy stories, you can build a huge campaign around fairy lore in the Northern Reach with there's a supplement called Terrible Beauty that just goes into the whole fairy lore of the world. So yeah, then there are other smaller gods that are present. Cosmology, yeah, you have dimensional pockets, or already kind of mentioned that. Hidden kingdoms, the underworld, hell. And then you have the void. So let's talk about the void for a second. So I like to envision this as there's a multiverse. Okay, and the multiverse has lots of different universes within it. So the universes exist in these bubbles. And each bubble is an entire universe. Just like our universe would be encapsulated inside a bubble within a grander multiverse. So these little bubbles of universes exist all over the place. Ours is just one. The universe of the Shadow of the Demon Lord game is another. Maybe Greyhawk is another. Maybe the Forgotten Realms is another. Maybe the Dark Sun universe is another. All of these are separate little bubble universes that exist within this grander multiverse. Now, what does it exist in? Well, it exists in the void. So the void is nothing. Or, essentially it is nothing. But it's not quite nothing. It has these bubbles in it, right? It also has the remnants of these bubbles that were burst by the Demon Lord. So the Demon Lord also resides in the void. And the Demon Lord is this entity that goes from universe to universe, trying to crack the shell and get into the goodies within to consume those universes. That's what the Demon Lord is. That's what it does. Once it does that, it's a messy eater, so whatever is left over just kind of drifts off into the void and becomes these little islands that you can find in the void. So the void is also full of demons. That's where demons originate. Demons do not originate from hell. Hell is where devils reside. And hell, the devils in hell are actually just corrupted fairies. Demons are one of the first creatures that were were created, and they reside in the void as the spiritual beings. They're formless, malevolent entities and they're direct offshoots of the Demon Lord. So they have the same desire as the Demon Lord to get into these these bubble universes and corrupt them and destroy them. That's all they want to do. That's all they exist for. So, these demons in the void are constantly, chipping away at these universes, trying to get in. As the Demon Lord focuses on one, all these demons are like working on all the others, right? So that's how I envision it. And then the stupid thing is that people inside these universes use magic to summon these demons, which causes a crack in the shells protecting these universes. So whenever a demon is summoned into the world by some crazy cultist, it cracks the shell, thus weakening it, so that when the Demon Lord comes to it, if there's lots of cracks, what do you do with a cracked shell? You know, you get your little nutcracker and you go and pop out the goodies, right? So that's why cults are bad, and that's why people need to stop the cults, because they are creating cracks in the shell. So, but the void is everything outside of the known universe. Now, the pocket dimensions that are mentioned up here, they're part of that pocket universe, that bubble. They're inside the bubble. But the void, there's nothing in the void except other universes and demons and the Demon Lord. And then, you know, the crumbs of whatever the Demon Lord has already consumed. Okay, so that is the void. And then it goes into the Demon Lord, which I've already kind of talked about. He's a malevolent entity that just wants to destroy and devour the universes, all of them. All right, and that, my friends, is a fitting end to this video and to Chapter 8. So the next chapter is running the game, and that's when we'll actually get into how to pull all the pieces of this game that we have talked about up to this point together and fit it into something that resembles fun at your tabletop or your virtual tabletop. So that'll be the next video, but for now, let's go ahead and wrap things up here. Thanks for watching once again. Like my videos if you like them, dislike them if you don't like them. Share my videos if you think that other people might be interested in this game. Subscribe if you want to see more of my videos, and then hit the bell icon if you want notifications of whenever I post a new one. So that's it. I'm out of here. Hail the Demon Lord, and now I figure out how to turn this thing off.